You heard for yourselves there. That is the conclusion of that media briefing that began about 12:30 from the Minister, Ronald Lamola, outside that Estcourt facility where the former President Jacob Zuma is being imprisoned, starting the early hours of this morning, beginning his 15-month jail sentence that was handed down by the Constitutional Court for contempt of court. And earlier, Minister Lamola making it very clear that there will be no special treatment, no preferential treatment, and that the former president will, like any other offender who's in any correctional services facility, will now qualify for parole consideration after serving 25%. That's a quarter of the sentence. That makes it about 3.75 months, which is nearly 4 months. We'll have to wait and see what's going to happen there. Lots of questions still to analyze and focus on. And to help me look at some of them this hour, I'm joined by the Associate Professor in Public Law at the University of Cape Town, Cathy Powell. Cathy, good afternoon, ma'am. Welcome to the Midday View on 702. We're coming to you in the morning, a few hours after the former president has begun his 15-month jail sentence at the Estcourt Correctional Facility. But leading up, ahead of his arrest in the early hours of this morning, there was a lot of confusion and uncertainty. And just one wonders if we were all going on the right track or we got it wrong from a law perspective.
Yes, Dan, what happened was exactly what was supposed to happen, which was that the president was taken to jail. He missed his own deadline of surrendering himself, the former president, President Zuma. He missed his own deadline of surrendering himself on Sunday night to the correctional facility. So the police got in there just in time and got into the correctional facility by Wednesday night, which was their deadline. That was what the Constitutional Court order required, and none of the applications that were made after the court produced its order, none of those applications had the effect of staying the order. So neither the application to the Pietermaritzburg High Court asking them to stay the order, nor the application to the Constitutional Court asking them to rescind the judgment, so both the conviction and the sentence, neither of those had the effect of changing or negating or throwing out the court order that Jacob Zuma surrender himself by Sunday, and failing that the police arrest him by Wednesday, by the end of Wednesday.
Yeah, and we'll find out, of course, on Friday, I think it's tomorrow, what the Pietermaritzburg High Court will rule, and many legal experts saying it cannot overrule or override, I don't know what's the right legal term, the Constitutional Court, which is a higher court and the apex court of our land.
You know, it is hard to think of the right term to use because this sort of thing doesn't happen. Do you say override? Do you say overrule? It's never happened that a lower court has been asked to overturn the order of a higher court. And that's in effect what happened here. It was the Constitutional Court that said Jacob Zuma must be imprisoned and told the police to go and arrest him if he didn't surrender himself. And it's the Constitutional Court and only the Constitutional Court that can amend that order. Even then, the Constitutional Court itself has its hands tied. It may not amend that order without very good reason. That's the rescission application. But going to a high court, a Pietermaritzburg High Court, and telling it to tell the police not to obey the order of the Constitutional Court is simply unthinkable. And yes, that's why you can't think of the right word for it. But it's not going to happen.
Yeah, I just wonder, from a legal perspective, wrong advice, could he have received better legal advice, how to approach this? This is all in hindsight, of course. The man is now sitting in a cell at the Estcourt Correctional Facility, beginning that 15-month sentence. Correct.
Well, it's interesting that he's still now claiming that he received bad legal advice before, while accepting what is fairly obviously bad legal advice, that he should go to the High Court and try to get it to overturn a decision of the Constitutional Court. So I think, first of all, legally it's irrelevant that he acted on bad legal advice. He's the one who acted. But secondly, I find it hard to believe that Jacob Zuma hasn't worked out that he can't do a lot of the things he's told the court he can do. So perhaps it's bad legal advice, or perhaps it's simply some form of willfully misleading the public and especially his supporters about what his rights are.
Should we be waking up today, South Africans, looking at what has played itself out? As you've said, it has never happened before. It's unprecedented. With a sense, should we be having a sense of relief that the rule of law is applicable here, and it is what, in the end of the day, has won, so to speak, if anybody has won anything?
Yes, I was relieved to discover that Jacob Zuma had been to prison the night before. And I don't think people realize how devastating and tragic it would have been if the police had not complied with the Constitutional Court order. You know, I noticed somebody on Twitter claiming that Jacob Zuma was being jailed for a small offence instead of all his big offences. Contempt of court, and especially contempt of the Constitutional Court, is one of the most important offences we can get, because that offence threatens to break down, to shake the administration of justice in the entire country. And if it had worked, if Jacob Zuma had in effect got the police not to arrest him, then you lose the rule of law and you lose a reliable, predictable government. Then what happens in South Africa is that the biggest man with the most supporters and the most arms gets his way. We should be very happy that that did not happen.
Now, is there a word or a way of looking at how the police handled this? We were not there, but could we be noting the exemplary firmness with which they carried out in the last minute, in the last hour, that order?
Well, I think the operative words were in the last minute, in the last hour. Remember, it's also the police that sent a letter to the Constitutional Court saying we've decided not to obey your order unless you tell us we have to. So there was a lot of dithering from the police, and that was not good for the rule of law. They saved themselves and us a little bit by finally stepping in and saying, look, we have to do this because the Court told us to. That's great. I'm not a police expert, but I was disturbed by how much Marikana was thrown around as the reason the police should not act against Zuma, because it suggests that in all the years since Marikana, the police have not improved their training and improved their operational directives such that difficult arrests like this can, in fact, be carried out with minimal threat to personal.
I mean, I must agree with you that one gets a sense that there was a lot of blustery from misguided elements about this issue.
Yes. I've noticed that too, and that's one of the glories of the arrest finally having happened, is that all this really macho bluster about, you know, you're going to have to kill me before the police can arrest my father, and so on. All of that has been shown to be bluster. And it's bad that it was ever considered admirable in the first place to claim that you're prepared to use violence to stop the police from doing their job. But it's really good to hear that actually they weren't that serious. And maybe they won't do the same bluster next time once it's been shown that actually they don't stand by it. They were just hoping that other people would back down. The police owed it to South Africa not to back down, and they did not, and I'm very happy about that. I just wish they had shown a little bit earlier what a no-brainer it was that, yes, we do have to obey the Constitutional Court ruling, and we do have to move now.
Okay, Cathy, before I let you go, just a final one. I'm just thinking here, next Monday, he'll have his session with the Constitutional Court. That's the 12th of July. If you were the CC and you were advising the Concourt, I mean, what would you ask them to ask him? Now, he's behind bars. He's shown contempt for the highest court in the land, and now he's paying the price, starting his 15-month sentence. After all the noise and the blustery that we saw that caused all kinds of uncertainty and anxiety in the country, what would you advise the Concourt to ask this man now?
You know, they can be very bland and simply ask Jacob Zuma or his counsel to establish why the preconditions for a rescission are met. And the answer will be that they're not met, And I think they would do a better job if they just focused on that one very simple, technical, narrow question. Are the requirements for a rescission met? Rather than revisiting everything that they said last week when they made it clear why Jacob Zuma's behavior was so unacceptable. They've said everything they have to say. They've said why he's in contempt. They've said why he must go to jail. Now all they have to do is to say to Dali and Mpofu, why have you called us back here? Prove to us that the decision was erroneously given. And that doesn't mean that there was a disagreement on the law. It means that there was a very, very obvious basic mistake, like giving a deadline of sometime last year. And why should it be relevant that Jacob Zuma was not present at these proceedings? Because that's his big complaint. He was detained without being given a chance to defend himself. Why should it make a difference when he chose not to be here? He had the chance and he didn't take it. I would hope the Constitutional Court can handle this coldly, clinically, and really fast.
We're going to have to wait and see. Hopefully the man himself is going to spend a few days reflecting on some of those issues. Thank you very much, Cathy Powell, there, just giving us some of her insights. She's Associate Professor in Public Law at the University of Cape Town.